How's it going, guys? You Auto Scotty coming at you here. I'm going to actually attempt to explain the complete rural plumbing system, all of its components and how it works. I'm going to be doing some repairs in this video, but I also wanted to make it a video that people could watch to also understand how everything works. Now, I got to say that I'm not a plumbing expert. I'm a do-it-yourself backyard mechanic. This is the extent of my own understanding, which I think is pretty good. I've done a lot of plumbing on my own house here, and everything's worked out more or less okay. Let's start at the well. So I'm going to take you out my backyard here. We'll go have a look at the actual well. There's all different types of wells, artisan wells and surface wells and all that. You know, you could have a sand point well as well. I have what's called a surface well, which uses modular kind of concrete circles that are called tiles for some reason, and those are sort of dug into the ground so that you have a 20 or 30 foot basin to which water can accumulate in, come up through the bottom. Well, we'll have a look at what this looks like here in a sec. I've got two wells at my house. Not really sure why, but anyways, they both work. Let's have a look at my first well here. I don't really think this is legal, but this is what one of my surface wells looks like. I've kind of pulled off the plastic and just to kind of prepare for this video. My other well is over here. So this is the proper way to do it right here. It's got a sort of a foundation and insulation. You have to kind of like, there's a little ladder that you can use to get down there. So it's been a while since I've been down there, so I should probably check it out. Anyways, we'll check that out one day. I've been down there quite a few times. So you can see it's just a series of concrete what they call tiles. Alright, so looking down into the well, we can see two lines come into the well, take a 90-degree turn, and head straight down to the bottom of the well. If you look really closely, you'll notice that one of those lines is slightly larger in diameter than the other one. We'll take another look here. Those two lines go right down to the bottom of the well, and at the bottom they are attached to a piece of gear, two pieces of gear, one called the foot valve, which is crucial, and something called the ejector, which is also crucial in a situation like this where you've got a well that's quite far away from the home and pretty deep in comparison to the elevation of the home. So we're going to talk in a moment here about the ejector and foot valve and what those two pieces do and how it helps your pump get the water into your house. One of these concrete. So not only is my house far away from the well, but it's also elevated. Oh, I don't know how many feet that would be, but it's pretty high up. It's pretty far away up there. And then not to mention the well goes about 30 feet down. So I don't know, there could be 70 feet of elevation that the pump is working against, not to mention the run of the pipe. So you're asking the pump to do a lot of work, and that's actually, the water is very heavy in the pipe. So quite the struggle for the pump to get the water to go up there. So okay guys, here's what the ejector and foot valve actually looks like. This is the part that's at the bottom of my well. You can see that the foot valve there looks like a sort of a strainer, and that prevents the pump from sucking up things like rocks, sand, and silt. And that also serves another function. It has a sort of a rubber stopper or a rubber flap that allows water to be sucked up, but doesn't allow it to go back down into the well. And that basically just keeps the lines primed so that the pump doesn't have to reprime itself every time it turns on. There's already water in the lines. The actual ejector part is attached to the foot valve. You can see there's two lines, one smaller than the other. The smaller line is called the drive line. Basically, that's sending water back down into the ejector and back up through the suction line. It creates sort of a venturi effect that helps the pump suck up the water. It's sort of, you could think of it as sort of changing gears on a bicycle. It just shifts the pump into a higher gear where it's easier for the pump to suck the water up from such a deep well. Here is another diagram of the drive line and the suction line and how it works. You can see on the left here, the drive line comes down into the ejector and it shoots the water back up through a nozzle inside of the ejector, which again you could see more clearly now how it creates that sort of low pressure environment or venturi effect that aids the pump in sucking the water up. And without this piece of equipment, your pump would have a really hard time getting the water to your house from such a deep location. So that's how that works. If your well is really close to your house, you don't really need that part on there. So let's go into my house now. We'll go down into the basement and check out my well. I'll see if I can explain all the pieces on there and what's going on there. Okay, here's a pump that some of you have seen already. I recently installed this one. This one's actually going down into the well that we didn't look at, that was covered, but I'll show you the actual pump that goes down into the one that we looked at here in a second. But here are the components. You can see there are two lines here. So those are the two lines that we saw, and it goes through my foundation here into a underground conduit, which goes all the way down to the surface well where the jet is and the foot valve. And this is where the water comes out of the pump head. And you'll notice there's a valve here that I've installed. And this is an important piece called the back pressure valve. And this adjusts how much water is being shot back down into the well. You can open and close this to adjust the amount of water that you're receiving and that's going back down into the well. So this is sort of like half open right now. And usually you could adjust that just by listening to the pump and watching the pressure here. From here, it goes through this line here that I have and into the into what's called the pressure tank T. And it's called a pressure tank T because it's, let's get some light in here. It looks like a T. So it comes in right here through this brass fitting. You can see we've got a sediment valve here. Actually, these two water lines here are, this is feeding my basement and this is feeding the rest of my house here. Then I've got a shut-off valve here and also a pressure gauge. So when the water comes in to your house, it goes into something called a pressure tank, which is this guy right here. If you didn't have that pressure tank, what would happen is that basically every time you turn your tap on, this pump would have to turn on. And obviously that's going to be really hard on the pump. It's going to be turning on and off a whole bunch of times and your pump's going to wear out really quick. So instead of that, we use a pressure tank. Pressure tank is a steel tank with a rubber bladder in it. It's kind of got this rubber balloon inside here, and the water comes in here and it fills up this balloon of rubber. Actually, the water never touches the outside or the inside of this tank here. You'll notice that up top we have a little Schrader valve This valve here, you can put air in here, and that will adjust the amount of pressure you have in your system. Just be sure the tank charge is 2 psi below cut-in pressure. Okay, so adjusting this whole pressure here, it's like topic of a separate video. When the pressure drops below a certain level, you have this pressure switch here, which has a line that's connected onto the head of the pump. When the pressure drops below a certain point, this is going to turn your pump on. That's for servicing the plumbing system. If you ever need to service the system or drain the tank, to maybe you want to clean some of the sediment out in the bottom of the tank, you would use this valve here, and you've got a shut-off valve here for servicing the plumbing system in your house. Let's say you gotta putting in a new sink or something like that, and you want to turn all the water off and drain the lines. It's just various reasons why you'd want to do that. Here's the other room, and my other jet pump for my other well is right here, and this is what I'm working on today. As a matter of fact, this has all been changed. You see I've got brass on brass fittings. All that's new. All right, in my hand, I've got 2 steel plugs that were in the pressure tank T that I had in my pressure tank. Here's the old T right here that I've had to remove. This is a 1/4-inch plug that used to be there. And this is another plug that used to be here. And as you can see, it's not in very good shape, is it? Basically, it just disintegrated. And that's where the plug used to be, right in there. Now, obviously, if this springs a leak anywhere, the entire contents of the pressure tank is going to empty into your basement. And the pump is going to turn on, and it is going to pump water into your basement through these now basically straight holes in your plumbing system into your basement. It's going to fill your basement. It's going to take all of the water in your well, and it's going to put all of that water into your basement. And there are some various ways you could control that. There's these little alarms that you can put on the pressure switch that will sense water on the ground that will turn your pump off. I haven't really looked into those too carefully yet, but I am going to install one of those on my pump, just a level of security that'll prevent that from happening. But as you can see, pretty serious problem if you spring a leak here, because you're basically just going to be emptying water into your basement indefinitely until you realize that it's happening. So pretty serious. These 2 tiny little plugs here can, this one, when I tried to take it out, it basically just cracked off. Same with this one. So you can imagine how big of a problem that would be if that happened when you're not home. You were in some deep trouble. You're going to have some kind of an insurance claim, and yeah. So anyways, that's how I understand my plumbing system. I hope that is a decent explanation. It's probably awful, but if you have anything to add to that, or if you're a professional plumber and you have anything to add to this, then please do. One of the things that I've also noticed is that when working with threaded fittings, let's say you're putting a sediment drain into a pressure tank T, like so. Oftentimes people will use the Teflon tape, but I find that when working with threaded fittings, absolutely is crucial to use this product here, Mega Lock multi-purpose thread sealant. And that basically, you put that on the threads before you put stuff together, you won't have any leaks. You'd be surprised how hard it is to get two threaded fittings to seal with each other. You can tighten them as much as you want, and they're gonna leak. So one thing I didn't show you guys when I put in that pump and pressure tank last year is that I actually took that whole setup apart and put it back together 3 separate times. It took so long. So if you're doing any of this kind of work, make sure to use that Mega Lock. That was the only way that I could really get those things to seal. And you can't even have a single drip leaking with well water like mine, because it will destroy surfaces and it just will create all kinds of problems. So you want to have zero leaks, even if it's the tiniest little drip. You can't have that happening, because eventually it will ruin something. So anyways, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that. We'll get into some plumbing now. I hope you stick around for the rest of the video. I hope that was a decent explanation, I guess, of what's happening. Yeah. If you have anything to add, constructive to add to that. Anyways, let's get into some plumbing. Okay guys, the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to drain the pressure tank by hooking up a small little hose that I've made to the sediment drain valve here. And as you're going to see, the water is going to come out pretty rapidly. There's a lot of pressure in this tank, and there's a lot of water too, so you can see what the problem is here. If any one of those steel plugs were to crack or break, all of this water would be in your basement, as well as the pump would come on and just pump water into your basement indefinitely, just like that. So in a moment here, I'm actually going to take these steel plugs out. I previously made a video explaining what galvanic corrosion is, and that's the primary thing that we're trying to fix here. And I'm just about to remove these steel plugs from this brass T, and as you're going to see, they're just going to crack right off. So I've turned that maybe half of a turn, and now I'm just unscrewing it with my fingers, and half the plug is still in the hole. So it's only a matter of time before that would completely disintegrate. You see there's just some iron sludge in there, and here's the 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch, 1/2 inch, I think, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, I'm not sure. That plug just snapped right off, as you can see that. And the threads are completely gone. The plug is completely cracked in half. And so here's just some iron sludge, and that's what that galvanic corrosion does. The steel actually over time disappears into the water. So just loosening the water inlet and outlet lines here. This is PVC, which needs a little bit of coercion with the heat here. It's really nice stuff to work with as long as you heat it up. Okay, now that we got this pressure tank free and all drained out there, there's still some residual water in there, as always. There's always you're always going to get wet, and there's always going to be a little bit of water when you're plumbing, so that's why I got the towels down there. Got all my supplies, new parts, and this is a really important part right here. We're going to try and get this pressure tank T out of the tank. I've done this once before, and I've messed up a tank by using a pipe wrench, just the same way as I'm doing here. If you flagpole on this fitting too much, you're going to actually bend the tank where the 90-degree fitting goes into the tank. So you got to be really careful how you apply the torque here. So I'm actually just turning it out by hand. Luckily it wasn't in there too tight. If you do need to use a pipe wrench, you got to just be really careful how you're applying the force. You can flagpole that fitting there and bend the tank. The walls of these pressure tanks aren't that strong, so it's a 90-degree angle there. I'm going with some Teflon tape, and here's a really important step: adding the Mega Lock thread sealant. Screwing the pressure tank T into our tank and using a pipe wrench just to torque it down, being very careful to not flagpole on that fitting. Here's a 3/4 inch, a 3/4 inch, a half inch, I'm not sure, half inch. Again with the Teflon tape and the Mega Lock, torquing it down. We're going to install our sediment drain now with the Teflon tape and Mega Lock. Once again, the Teflon just serves as a lubricant, I find, just to get the fitting installed. Installing a little 1/4 inch plug, and you'll notice these are brass, so they will not be subject to galvanic corrosion. And here is a new pressure tank gauge. Get that in there. And the next step is to install our inlet and outlet fittings. I do have to be a little careful with these because they're plastic, or not plastic, but I forget what they're made out of. But anyways, again with the Teflon tape and the Mega Lock, and we're back down in the basement. We got all brand new fittings, going with our heat to just to help us get these on here. Of course, don't forget your pipe clamps. Tighten down these pipe clamps, torque them down, and close the sediment valve. Have a nice little surprise if you turn the water on with that valve. Now the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to replace the main line. I'm just trying to get the water going, and my pipe cutter is, well, I can't actually, there's the other pipe's in the way, so we got to go with the hacksaw. And again, lots of water coming through here. We're always going to get a little bit of water, and there you go again. So always have a bucket handy to catch the drips and the leaks. And just cutting out some of the main portions of the line here. We had some pinhole leaks, so we're getting rid of all this copper. Today we're just replacing the main line and cutting more parts of the main line out here. Getting this all out of the way. Going with a little chamfer tool from my pipe flaring kit, just to clean up the ends here before you go with the shark bite. It's important that the copper is really clean and prepped really well for the shark bite. So I'm taking the edges off here because there's a rubber O-ring in those shark bite fittings, and that can get damaged if you're putting it on and there's sharp edges. So you see this copper is in really bad shape. All of this is going to have to get ripped out. So this is kind of temporary right here. I'm just getting the PEX up to this point. Should be good for another month or so. But then I'm going to make another video taking all the rest of that copper out of there and using this PEX, which is great to work with. Modern plumbing is just fantastic. Technology's come a long way. So you see this is the other type of fittings that you could use with PEX. It's like a compression. You get these little steel rings and then a crimping tool. Put the fitting in and then you just crimp it on. It's like putting Lego together, really. It's super fun actually because it's just super easy. It's super easy to cut these parts and get them all together. It's quick. And I find the best part about this is there's never any leaks. This seems to be really, it just seals really nicely. I've never once had a problem with any of this PEX stuff. Getting the other end of the main line installed here. Boom. Easy. You do have to really make sure that they're pressed all the way together, but you get the hang of that. So with the pecs and the shark bite, there are these little inserts that you put in to prevent the line from collapsing. It just keeps it nice and rigid where the shark bite is, because it's an O-ring that seals that. So you want the seal around that O-ring to be nice and solid. So just gotta remember to put those little inserts in there. If you're doing it with copper, then you don't put the insert in. So we got our water heater all hooked up, and one last connection to make here. Super easy, super simple. Boom. Done. All right. And one last connection to make here. Go with the it's a 3/4 inch insert in there, and she's together, and we're done. We're gonna turn this water on. Let's see what we got here. All brand new tea. Cleaned up this tank. These connections are all good. Okay. Just a moment of truth. So far, so good. It's working good. But let's come in here. Hot water heater. Bam. Okay, the tap's on. Taps are on upstairs. So it's okay. No leaks, no leaks. Go upstairs. All right, let's let her fly. Let her fly. Only one way to do it, right? Let her go. Let her fly. That's wide open. Wide open. Pump's coming on. I don't see any leaks. No leaks. The pump pressurizes both tanks. New gauge seems to be working pretty good. No leaks. Everything looks good over here. What do we got over here? No leaks here. Feel nice and cold water in there. We're good there. Everything seems good over here too. Not a single leak. Okay. Good. Oh, what's this? There's some water here. Oh, that's just condensation maybe? is extremely cold, so I'm getting a little sweating. A little sweating on these. We got water. Is it ever nice to have water here? That's nice. I think that's a success. I think. Now, all of this plumbing is going to have to get replaced, of course, but that's for another day. We got things up until here all replaced, and then we're going to do all of this on another day. Give me